Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Ricky with Tuckwood Solutions, and today I'm going to be asking Kesh how to get started in real estate. So the part that let me start off by saying Kesh was actually the first person to ever wholesale a property to Nick and I. So our first house flip ever in Arizona. Kesh actually didn't know this until today. First house flip ever. It was in Peoria. And he smoked us. No, just kidding. The really cool thing about that is that Kesh started just, I would say, like not that long ago, right?
Yeah, so I've been just about 2 years, honestly. So
well, what would you say, like, you really began to step on the gas, scale?
So it's kind of been an up and down journey. I started by myself, and then I was driving for dollars, doing all the basics of what everybody teaches you on YouTube, and then I paired up with a guy out in Georgia. So we were partners for about 6 to 8 months, and then things kind of just separated, and then I started this company that I'm doing now about 6 months ago.
And this is?
The company's Ovation Equity.
Ovation Equity.
Yeah,
so now, for the month of November, how much did you guys source in deals?
So in wholesaling, what you call assignment fees, we did a little bit over $215,000.
That's the part that I think is the most exciting. He went from when you sold us that Peoria flip, that was about $10,000 to $15,000, right? That took about 3 months, right? It was one of your first deals, was it not, that you did on your own?
Yeah, it was like probably number one or two I did, yeah.
Yeah, and then now to have scaled it from $10,000, $15,000, that's a great deal of money, right?
Yeah.
But now to have scaled to over, not just 6 figures, but over $200,000 in assignment fees in just 1 month. I think that's what I'm most excited about, because yes, we're going to be asking questions about how you scaled to 200,000, but I think the question that everyone has is, how can you even just get started like? And I think that's really what I'm excited to learn a little bit more about. So I actually made a poll on Instagram. First off, if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, it should be linked right here, as well as I'm going to put Kesh's Instagram, so if you ever have any questions about getting started with wholesaling, feel free to message him as well. So I'm going to start off by saying and asking, well, for those that don't know, what is wholesaling?
So it's basically just an arbitrage opportunity in real estate where you're essentially finding distressed, maybe not even distressed, but just properties under what it would sell retail value.
Yep.
And that's usually because of some sort of motivation, whether they're going through a divorce, bankruptcy, liens on the property, whatever you can think of. You're trying to find those kind of homeowners to be able to help out their situation.
Yeah.
And so by us going in and buying that home, you're essentially paying off those liens or whatever, and you're coming in, and that's the value you bring to the homeowner.
Correct.
And then you go ahead and flip as simple as just a piece of paper to an end buyer, which can either be a big company, it could be a private buyer, basically whoever sees value in that property.
Yeah, and most of wholesales that you do would most likely be off market, right? Houses that are not normally posted on the MLS, on Zillow, on Realtor. And I think that brings us to the next question. How is it that someone can source a deal wholesaling as they're just getting started?
Yeah, so you really don't need a crazy amount of money. I'm not going to say you could do it with $0, because how I started was I drove for dollars.
So what does that mean?
So that's essentially driving around and looking for distressed properties. You can buy data online and try to source data from the county website. I wanted to get in the field, and you're seeing a home that has a tarp on the roof, cars parked in the back, like some sort of distress sign, because when somebody doesn't want to take care of the home, there's probably some level of distress. And so I would drive around, take addresses down, skip trace them, which is essentially getting the numbers, and then go and call them and say, hey, would you consider an offer for your property?
So would you say that a very common mistake when people try to just get started is, I hear it all the time, where they try to scrape online data for deals, right? And I feel like that, although might be useful for some people, you wanted to take a different approach and actually drive around, see physically a distressed property potentially, and then be able to try to then find that to be, or at least make an offer on those specific properties, right?
Yeah, so you can go ahead and buy data online. That's kind of the point where we're at now, because we do such a big volume. I can't drive around and do $200K in a month. It's not really possible. Yeah, so from driving for dollars, we transitioned. I've tried everything. You can do Facebook ads, Google ads. Like, you can get real creative with it, but obviously you're paying for it in a heavy price. So especially if you're starting. Some of the better ways are driving for dollars. You can get a list of 5,000-10,000 properties for pretty cheap in this industry anymore. Things have gotten a lot cheaper just because everybody...
So competitive.
Yeah, and so that definitely reduced the prices. And so probably 5-10K pieces of data will cost you, with phone numbers, anywhere between like $300 to $500.
Okay.
And that's just an opportunity to try to cold call, and you should be doing that probably yourself at that point.
That would be collecting data, right, of potential distressed properties, or just public records, right?
Public records, yeah.
Public records, and then having people cold call either yourself or other people, and that would cost around $300 to $500, but then all the time that it would take to cold call, right?
Yeah, my recommendation, I mean, if you're getting in the industry, you're trying to get in real estate, so you want to figure out how you need to talk to homeowners. Like, get on the phone yourself.
Definitely.
I wouldn't recommend going and hiring VAs or local friends, whatever. I mean, try to figure it out yourself, and then once you get the handle of it, and then go and you have the ability to teach somebody then. Definitely. Maybe after a deal or two, after you make 10,
to understand
15.
What works, what doesn't, and
Yeah.
what needs to be said during these conversations. So I really like that you brought that up, because everyone always says, like, well, you don't necessarily need any money, right, to wholesale. But when theoretically, yes, I guess that is true if you just are really lucky at finding a deal and being able to close when you just reassign the contract, right?
Yeah.
What would you say if someone is trying to get started? How much money do you think is necessary to at least be able to, if they have enough time available, to be able to source their first deal? So if you were to start this all over again, how much money do you think that you would need, and what approach would you take? Would you cold call, or would you still drive for dollars? I think that's my question, because people always want to just do the cold calling, the scrapping data, which is a very laid-back approach. Yeah. Or I haven't heard that as much, where you go around and drive around and try to find distressed properties. I would almost think that is probably a little bit more effective, because you're putting yourself in the field.
Yeah, I mean, you could go as far to door knock if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
I know people that do that as well and are very successful at it, but I would say probably they both work. This isn't an industry where you need to, there's one right way. I mean, driving works, calling works. At the end of the day, you're going to have to talk to the homeowner somehow. Yeah. So whether you go knock the door, if you go find the property that's distressed, at this point in wholesaling, it's a very different industry than it was 2 years ago. Driving for dollars used to work, but I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of competition. Yeah. So I want to say it's almost a numbers game a lot of the time, too. Yeah. So in my opinion, how I would start is I would get a list, if I'm being honest. Okay. Because the more homes you touch, the more opportunities you're creating, and therefore
just start calling that list.
Start calling that list, and you're going to get people. I mean, any list you pull at any point, you're going to have people that have already called those people, but it's all timing. Yeah. So I can call the same list that you call, and you're going to get 15 different leads in that same day. Yeah. Just because you called at 1:10 and I called at 1:30 when they weren't home. Yeah. So it's just creating opportunity for yourself, and so the more opportunities, that's why I think you can probably get a lot more homes calling than just driving around.
I like that. And what would you say for the dollar amount? Do you think it just needs to be, is all your expense just having a phone and then paying for that list?
So paying for the list, and then in my recommendation, you want to get what's called a dialer. So we use softwares like there's Batch Dialer, we use ZenCall, which I think is called Ready Mode now, and that essentially automatically dials for you. And so you're not burning your phone number. In this day and age, regulations are happening more and more with how many numbers they recognize really quickly. If you're just making a bunch of calls, like they're going to mark, and so you don't want your personal phone just being marked as spam. So we use a dialer that essentially dials, I think our average agent does a few $1,000s a day. Wow. And that's just for one person. So if that's you, I mean, think about the opportunities, how many conversations you're having.
Especially if you get a list of about 3,000 to 5,000 properties. Yeah. You spend, let's say you commit for like 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And you can, as long as you invest enough time, you should be able to run through that list in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it just depends on the person. You can set different speeds on how quickly you want to call. And that list you'll probably get through in the first couple of days, and then you just recycle it and go back through it. Okay. Because realistically, on a 3 to 5K list of homeowners, you're not going to talk to more than probably 50 to 100 people. Wow. That's just how cold calling works. It's a numbers game, right? So then you think about other opportunities, and you can start those other 2,950 people. How do I reach them? And then you can start different marketing techniques.
So now bringing on to the next question, when it comes down to just getting started and now,
Yeah.
what were your biggest challenges as you just got started, and then what are your biggest challenges now as a wholesaler?
Biggest challenge is always getting that first deal.
Yeah.
It's
Having the confidence, you think?
having the confidence, and it's not just you're calling people, it's what you do after that. That's really the important part, is how do you send a contract the right way? How do you follow up with the homeowner? What title company do you use? It's kind of like how I did it, and that's how most people do it, is you just kind of fail your way to success.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to go through the process, and you can learn all that basic stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, it's YouTube University for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So, and then kind of now our biggest struggle is just creating consistency. You bring people on your team, people leave, so we do strictly cold calling. So I hire a lot of people in the Philippines to cold call,
Like
8 hours
VAs.
a day, VAs, yeah, to cold call. And so people leave, people come, and it's always a changing thing. So to create that consistency, because this is all about follow-up, this industry. So until you really build that pipeline of a bunch of follow-ups, because most of your deals should come from follow-ups. It's not first touch. Yeah, they say, and this is just what I've heard, but the average like cold call to close is about 90 days in this industry.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you kind of have to put in the reps and time to get those leads for months, and then eventually you'll start seeing consistency.
I think that's huge that you said that, because, again, just due to my lack of understanding of this, I thought you would have just called, one person agrees, and then you close. But you're saying from
those are the best ones. I'll take that.
But I think that makes it, that puts it into perspective of how realistic, or trying to be realistic about it, that, like, as you start, give yourself, at least 90 days to be able to source that deal, because if that's the industry average, then there's no question it can definitely take much longer than that, right? Especially, I think right now we live in a world where people are trying to like make money so quick right away, and it's that instant gratification. So I think that just puts into perspective where a lot of videos I've watched about wholesaling, it's always just like, you need no money, you can literally it's just one deal, and it can happen right away. But especially at the scale that you're at, I think that's great that you put that into perspective of how it is a numbers game, right? You need to be just reaching out to or touching as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And then the follow-ups, right? So 90 days, I definitely would have not guessed that.
Yeah.
This is a good one. So how did you get started, and how is it that you've now built your connections? What sparked your interest in wholesaling?
So I just saw a YouTube video, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it was a while ago, and I just saw the opportunity to make money. It was an easy way to, obviously wholesaling shouldn't be anybody's end game, in my opinion. It's a great way to source money to take down those flips or buy those rentals. It's just basically what people call a cash cow. So I got into it about 2 years ago from YouTube. And so yeah, the connections, I mean, it's great to network in this industry, because you can always, everybody runs it's such a simple business, but everybody runs it differently. So I have a bunch of buddies, even a couple in this office, that do their own business, and they run them very differently. But connections-wise, buyers are really important in this industry. If you don't have a buyer, you're not selling your deal, right? Buyer's list. So as much as people will tell you, don't find the deal and the buyers will come, we're at a point where I almost work backwards at this point. So I spend a lot of my days on LinkedIn now. That's a big gem for me that nobody touches. I can find a lot of I try to find hedge funds, private equity people that'll pay high values for close to retail for these properties, because that's just how the market is. There's such low inventory. So they buy them and hold on to them for 10, 15 years. And so they don't really care about
the current market
current market value. They care about the rent rates, because rent rates are probably just going to keep going up.
Yeah.
So I just work backwards. I find a bunch of those guys. I connect with them on LinkedIn, and then everybody has their own criteria, which is the toughest part. So when you're trying to source deals, we just call anybody and everybody at this point, just because if there's equity or there's a spread on a deal, you should be able to sell it, because if not, that homeowner's going to go list it 20, 30K above retail, and they'll probably get it.
Yeah.
And so you just have to recognize where you're at in the market. So
I like that. I like this one. So this was actually coming from, it says, okay, so this is from a lady that's asking, how do you not get nervous when cold calling? I think psychologically, and just, I would say even for myself, right? I feel like I'm a pretty confident guy, but if I call 100 people and I get rejected 100 times, that is very discouraging.
It isn't discouraging until you recognize, I mean, these deals, they're not $300-$500. Like, there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah.
So if confidence kind of pairs with how much money you could potentially make on that deal. So average deal size probably in this industry is $10,000-$15,000. So if you just recognize that, I mean, the more no's, it just becomes very repetitious at some point.
Yeah.
So everybody's nervous when they start, but I mean, at the end of the day, the worst somebody can say is no. And to put in perspective, it took me 7 months to get my first deal.
That's what I was literally just going to ask you.
Yeah.
So it took you 7 months to get your first deal,
Yeah.
and on average, how many deals do you think you get now per week? How about that?
We do about 2 to 3 a week. Yeah.
2 to 3 a week.
Yeah. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that within itself is super exciting on how you can scale a business of something that started as a hobby off of a video that just sparked your interest to now having it to be a full-fledged business. Now kind of transitioning, I wanted to ask you, what's the most money you've ever made off of a wholesale deal, and what's also have you ever lost?
Yeah, so biggest one, unfortunately, we had an $86,000 deal fall apart in the last 24 hours a couple weeks ago because of rental restrictions from an HOA. So a lot of my buyers buy rentals, right? And so we found out in the covenants they had an HOA, and it just killed the deal.
Wow.
So I ended up selling it to a flipper, and I made like 10 or 15K or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I do. The biggest one I think was like 58,000.
58,000.
Yeah. We have one under contract, right? Like today we just sold one that was 38,000 right before you got here. But I've lost a lot of money too. Like I've JV'd, which is a big part of this industry. So if you don't really have that buyer, it's what's called joint venture. Go and find somebody, whether it's me or just somebody that's doing this business, because they probably have the buyers for it.
I see.
And then you can, I mean, most likely you weren't going to sell that deal. You're potentially with that person, they might make half that 50, 20%, whatever you guys discuss, and they'll sell that deal, and that's a great way to potentially find your first buyer as well. So
I know that was I see ads all the time of like, I buy homes cash. Have you seen any success with that, or do you dabble in that at all?
We strictly cold call.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a guy that really believes in, I mean, we did that, not to say we did a lot, but we did a decent amount, and that was with 5 cold callers.
Okay.
I mean, the potential, I've seen companies with 15, 20. There's no reason for me to put my marketing, I just have so much potential in the cold calling space I haven't tapped into, so.
Okay, so marketing dollars definitely behind the cold calling, and then that's where most of the deals are sourced. And then, okay, and I think this is more of like a logistic-ish question for you of like, now that you have, these cold callers, 5 of them, right? You have your team also at your office,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
How is it that you structure out these, like, from the first touch, you said on average it takes 90 days.
Yeah.
How does it go down the pipeline of like, when does that deal actually get sent to you where it's like that you handle the calls moving forward? Is it after the first touch your team handles everything moving forward, or are the cold callers, do you trust them enough to do everything moving forward?
No, so they have a strict job. They ask 4 pillars, price, motivation, timeline, and condition. That's all I get from them. They will essentially send that lead over to our CRM we use called Podio. And then my acquisition guys will essentially call them with all the information they took down. So they're only going to send that lead if they potentially are open to an offer, or if they're, I guess, actively looking to sell. Anybody that's not interested, they obviously won't send.
Yeah.
But once that touch happens, it's up to the acquisition guy. And
as a much more well-educated, well-informed on how to position you guys as a solution for that.
yeah, I mean, their job is essentially to go in, see what their situation is, who that homeowner is, and then what solution can we do to help the homeowner, and that's just making an offer at that point.
Is your price spread from what they initially want to what you're initially offering? Is it always usually pretty far away, or do you come pretty close to what they want every time?
Well, we'll never give the price. If we can meet their price, and most of the time, most of our deals come, as much rapport as you can build with somebody, everybody has their number. As much as they're your best friend, they have their number. So it's just finding more opportunities for somebody that sounds bad but truly doesn't know the home value.
Yeah.
And then like, well, if somebody wants 200,000, it's worth 250. Like, I'm gonna get it at 200. I'm not gonna let that deal go, but we'll go offer 180.
Yeah.
And test the waters and be like, honestly, this I kind of wanted to be at this number. Do you think you have a little bit of wiggle room?
Yeah.
But we'll just make them fight for their number. We'll never make it.
Super. Yeah.
Just give in just because.
Yeah, because
you
then
can
they're
make money.
gonna mentally think they could go get higher. So
Yeah.
we like make it so they feel like they're pulling our teeth to get that 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I like that. How is it and why is it? Did you move from wholesaling in Arizona
yeah.
to now wholesaling in Georgia? I think for myself, like seeing that Arizona is very competitive. So I wanted to see if that was the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, from a business owner's perspective, I was like, I'm just making up a number, but if the average cost per lead in Arizona is $500 and it's $150 in Georgia, it makes me a bad business owner not to want to go and do that when the same spreads happen. There's really no difference. It's just more opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we have our struggles with trying to be virtual. We can't go get those contracts signed.
That's what I have seen you post. You're like, hey, can I get someone to meet, to
Yeah.
go be in Georgia? So now, how is it that you manage that? Like,
So we started implementing more processes. So like now I have a full-time transaction coordinator, which is
Okay.
actually my girlfriend, but yeah, so in-house, I guess. But she, yeah, literally in-house. So,
in-house.
but she essentially will get pictures from that homeowner. Like within 24 hours of getting that contract, we have a follow-up call and she does that. And she's like, hey, can we get a bunch of pictures from you? And so now I don't really have to pay anybody. I just get them from the homeowner. I mean, sometimes we have to go special stipulations, but
Yeah. Now you're taking pretty much what I see as just like this well-oiled machine, this like solid foundation, this solid understanding of how to wholesale in Georgia virtually, right?
Yeah.
And now because you have the team, because you have the understanding of how the market works, because you have the structure, now it makes sense to go into these other markets that you can dive into and to test to see if you can be effective and successful in those markets, which it's not going to surprise me at all that you will be, right? But I think that's what's most exciting is like showing, like the proof is in the work of what you're doing, right? You started in a very small scale. Your team is still relatively pretty small, but that's one of the things that I like most is like when you can keep such a tight-knit team, it's very easy to manage and you will only hire if needed, right, or if of value.
Yeah.
And I think just it puts into perspective how someone can appropriately and realistically scale a business. Really, I mean, I would have to say that you're saying 2 years is probably when you started, but like I'd have to say in the past year is really where I saw you make the difference, right?
Yeah.
Also, a question because I saw you post on Instagram. What was the thing about you working at McDonald's? That was a joke.
No, it was a low point in my life for sure. No, but it was.
Was that real?
I did, but I did it for YouTube a little bit. Yeah, no, but it looks good. Yeah, it looks good.
There's no.
But I literally did. It had a lot of views. It was like 150K views.
Yeah,
It was nuts. So I was like, honest. I'd be at probably like Walmart right now. I'd probably have already gone through Taco Bell, Wendy's at this point. I would have gone through all of them, but I was just doing it for the content because that's when I split with my partner and I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Because I was like, he kind of just took everything and I just was like, okay. And so I thought long and hard about it and I was like, I know too much. I might as well keep going. So
I like that. Well, I think that's a great way to end it because while you had everything kind of going for you, especially with a partner, and then normally people would give up at that time. Right?
Yeah.
I really just thought at that point you were doing it to upload videos. I did not think it was true, and it's crazy to see my perspective because I was like, oh, it looks like he's like having fun, but to you that could, I guess it was one of the lowest points, but to see that you took such an unfortunate just series of events, right?
Yeah.
And you made it and turned it into something so great. I think that's what's most exciting. So I'm super excited to follow up. But again, I hope that you guys learned something new in this video. Friendly reminder, if you guys are in the Georgia area and or if you've ever wanted to get started when it comes down to wholesaling, I'm going to put Kesh's information down in the description. You guys simply want to connect. Again, you guys just have to ask yourself a very simple question. How can you be of value for someone that's already doing well? No one's going to want to help you if you're just asking for handouts. But if you're in the area and or if you have time and you think that you can be of value for someone, then just make sure that you present yourself or that you reach out in a, I would say, respectful manner. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for having us. And if you guys have any questions that you guys would like us to ask in future videos, comment that down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take it easy, team.